So, okay, then to get the power. Historically, the mill race powered the woolen mill in Amana, the flour mill in Amana, the calico mill in Amana, and a sawmill in Amana, as well as a woolen mill in Middle and a sawmill in Middle, and a starch factory in Middle. So really 7 factories in those 2 villages were powered by water from the mill race. Now, I gotta qualify that because it was never totally powered by water. They always had steam backup. Okay, they couldn't, it was a manufacturing. They had to keep going even in low water or if the dam broke or something. So they always had steam backup. All kinds of problems, not only with the mill race, but here at the woolen mill itself. They had a wall collapse. This was in about 1895. You can see kind of where the turbines were. I want to say turbine because it was never water wheels. When you're thinking about power generation in the Amana mill race, get that romantic image of the water wheel out of your head because it was very industrial. It was a tube with a propeller in it. And when the water came down through that tube, it spun the propeller. Okay, so very efficient in that way. It was always mechanical at the beginning. Okay, it powered line shafts that went into the woolen mill and into the flour mill. When the flour mill burned in 1923, there used to be 3 turbines. When the flour mill burned, they didn't need that anymore. They converted it into just 1 turbine, okay? Still powering line shafts in the woolen mill there. In 1934, rural electrification came to the Amana colonies, and they were able to use electricity. So in part, like the millwright building, which is way north, and the machine shop, they cut those off of the line shaft and had electric motors powering the wheels and pulleys there, but still using the hydro, using the turbine to power the main line shaft in the main mill. Then in 1954, they got rid of all the mechanical aspect, all the line shafts, and put in a hydroelectric generator. That in this building right here. And that's the other view of it from there. So that there are no more line shafts, just a big electric generator in there in 1954. And then of course they had to electrify all the stuff in the woolen mill and take it off of those line shafts. This is down in there. This is where the turbine is in there, those like fan things, those can open and close. There's a governor so that it regulates the amount of water that can go through there. There's another view. In operation, we'd be underwater here, okay? These are the gates that are holding the mill race back. So those gates are open, that's all underwater, and then it swishes through the turbine. Historically, the fall was about 19 feet. Today, because of siltation and the Coralville Reservoir, it's under 15 feet. Historically, it could power about 300 horsepower, I think, is what they said. It could create 300 horsepower falling 19 feet in Amana there. Once they electrified that hydro, before the flood in 1993, it was producing enough electricity to power about 50 homes for a year. So it does have substantial potential for electrical generation. In Middle, the fall was less. It was only about 10 feet, but still pretty significant. So most people would agree that the mill race has a lot more benefits than just economic, okay? That there's other reasons that it's worth it to maintain the mill race. There are recreational opportunities, right? There's boating, obviously. There's fishing. One of the main pastimes in communal Amana was ice skating up and down the mill race. There's bird watching. There's canoeing. It has other benefits other than just those boring economic ones. Boating was always popular, and it's interesting because I was just reading that even though the elders forbid a lot of pastime, they encouraged boating on the mill race, which I thought was kind of interesting. That's my grandmother right there, and that's right below our house. Here's a view in Amana, again with a boat, and here this is up there on the west end of Middle Amana, and building a dock actually to facilitate the boats there. So the mill race had lots of other benefits rather than, like I say, power generation, and a lot of those benefits are because of the Lily Lake. We can't talk about the Amana Mill Race without talking about the Amana Lily Lake. The Lily Lake, simply put, would not be there if it wouldn't be for the mill race. And in fact, it was not there before the mill race. Here's a map about 1850, survey of public land. Of course, Amanas aren't here yet. Right here is where Amana would be. That's Price Creek coming into the river. The things I've highlighted here say swampland. Okay? This is where middle would be. That's that Eka, Amana on Eka. Yeah. Okay? So there's middle, there's Amana. In between, swampland. That X right there, that's where the road to the Performing Arts Center comes off at 220. Okay, to give you a sense. Okay, and interesting, this says a road. Okay, don't think paved road or anything, more like a path or a trail. But, if you put the mill race over that, that's just the path of the mill race. I think they just kind of built the mill race following that road. This is a map from in 1860. Okay, Amana's there, middle isn't yet. Okay, again, swampland there. No Lily Lake. And there's that X. Highway 220 comes around in circles. This is an 1874 atlas. And this is the first map that I'm aware of, which would have been what? We're talking 7 years after the mill race was built. This is the first map I'm aware of where it actually shows a lake. I think it's kind of misleading that, canal didn't go through the lake. Maybe it went under it. I don't know. But the lake is an example of what can happen if you don't allow the water from the north to get down to the river where it drains. The mill race acts as a dam, as a levee, and backs the water up. There's a story that they used to actually, where it said hay and stuff, swamp and stuff, they actually used to get hay off of that field that's now the lake. And there's a story about how they left their hay rake there one year, and then it rained and flooded, and the hay rake was covered up, and then there was a lake. And they never got their hay rake off of there. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it's very possible. Now, like I say, this is kind of misleading because there was somewhat of a levee between the race and the lake at all times. I remember as a kid, you could walk along the north levee of the race, between the race and the lake, up until the very west end, east end, where there was actually an inlet where that connected the two. There were breaches in there. I mean, the lake and the race really were kind of one. But not until 1993 then, after the flood of 1993, was there actually that main levee that's now the bike trail put in there to actually separate it. And that was done because, ironically, in the flood of 93, the race had drained, so there was no water in it. The levees had breached, and then all the water ran out of the Lily Lake. Okay, so that in 1993, the Lily Lake was dry while the rest of Iowa was underwater. And then that's when that levee was built and that tube was put in there to try to keep water in the lake, even when the race wasn't there. This could we say, 2023 here? Huh? This is from the Massardi Bulletin. The lake is at an all-time low with dry ground hundreds of feet from the banks. Okay? And then just a week later, there is now more water in the canal, so the lake is filling up again. Again, I think it just shows how important that mill race is to the Lily Lake. It must have filled up pretty good, because just a few years later, they had speedboat races. Sponsored by the Amana Welfare Association. We have another, this is the first annual. We know they at least did it 3 years. I don't know if they did it much more than that, but it was quite the event. RC, I know, is saying that he actually remembers going and watching those races there. I don't know if you were behind the wheel of any of them. And sometimes maybe just a more quiet sail through the Lily Lake. Lily Lake wasn't always seen as a plus. Sometimes it was seen as unused land, unproductive land, or even a nuisance. In 1920, the Amana community wanted to drain the Lily Lake. And Iowa Academy of Sciences out of Iowa City actually set up a committee to study that possibility. And that committee actually recommended that it not be done because of its natural habitat and the fact that those lotus plants were in there. But Bertha Shambaugh, ever the advocate of the Amana colony, she wrote a letter supporting the idea that the Lily Lake should be drained. Okay? Now, in 1920, they weren't going to drain it because they wanted to plant corn. They wanted to drain it because it was a nuisance. It was attracting visitors. Seriously. It was attracting visitors. And they were complaining that these visitors, Dr. Noy tells me that on a fair Sunday, as often as 1,500 visitors are at the Lily Lake. Okay, this was in 1920. Wow. Okay. And this is what she was talking about. This is what and if you look closer at some of the documents, what the Amana folks, Dr. Noy and Dr. Marshall, were worried about is that these tourists were not being polite, that they were kind of taking over the place. And I think this is an example of that. Somebody had actually built a shelter along the Lily Lake there. I think these are excursionists coming to the Amana Lily Lake and having fun. For some reason, we didn't like that. But luckily that never happened. And actually, selling lilies became quite the enterprise for a lot of kids. When I was a kid, we would go down to the Lily Lake, pick lilies, put them in a bucket next to the road. I don't know what, we maybe sold them for $25 or a dozen or something like that. And a lot of kids earlier on would do that, sell water lilies. The minute you got them home, they died. Here, this is one of those. This line here. I'll just read it because you probably can't see it. It is regrettable that the wide surface of our lake brings so little profit for the corporation. We should build a nice summer resort along the shore, or a sanatorium. Who knows what healing powers the water may contain? So again, people were thinking, you know, it's that old notion that if we're not profiting from it, it's worthless. I mean, I hope as a society and culture we're growing out of that notion today, that there's more value to natural areas. We don't have to exploit everything. So the Amana Mill Race and the Amana Lake, I think, everyone will agree has more benefit to the community than economic or even recreational or even natural areas. As Peter's going to talk about, the Lily Lake and the Mill Race are a part of our sense of place, are part of our community identity. These maps I want to point out, we make these maps to represent ourselves to visitors, to outsiders, to other people. There's the Mill Race, okay? We put the Mill Race almost more prominent than the river itself. And look at here. There's the Mill Race. You know, the visitor doesn't need to know there's a mill race there. They're not going to be navigating it, but we apparently felt important enough to show ourselves to visitors in terms of showing the mill race. Now, so it gives our community a sense of identity, a sense of pride. It's also inspirational to artists. This is a painting. That's not Monet. It's a Susan Shoup. But the Lily Lake itself has inspired many artists, painters here, photographers. This is Lisa Lammy photo. Even poets. This is a poem by the Lakeside Dweller. Is actually Harry Lenhard, and the poem is in kind of German. You can tell it's kind of German because the title is Der Lake. But it's actually a really cool poem. And anyway, so it inspires artists as well. So again, I think the mill race energizes our community, it empowers our community, and that Iowa's Amana colonies just wouldn't be the same without it. Thank you.
Thank you.